this here is a big old saw. I'm going to cut this nice tree here. So normally you want to stand on the side where it's going to fall on you, but I've chosen myself to stand where it's not going to fall. At least I think. I'm not exactly a chainsaw expert. That's why I don't have a chainsaw. I've been given the right tool for the job. A blade that's a little bit bigger than the width of the trunk. Now it might take a little bit more effort to cut this tree down, but of course you have to work with what you got. And no complaining. If you don't get the right tool, you just gotta do it anyways. Now, that's all, kids. Have fun with your math lesson or reading or whatever I pop this on. See ya. Bye-bye. So, there's a reason why you get the right tool. This doesn't work too well. We're going to continue to try, but it's not as effective anymore. Not as effective. Hey guys, so I decided we'd go with reading this book today called Born Worker by Gary Soto. So yeah, it's about, I guess, two boys who, one's kind of a hard worker and the other's not so hard worker. So yeah, here we go. They said that Jose was born with a ring of dirt around his neck, with the grime under his fingernails and skin calloused from the grainy twist of his shovel. They said his palms were already rough at the time he was 3. And soon after he learned his primary colors, his squint was the squint of an aged laborer. They said he was a born worker. By 7 he was drinking coffee slowly, with his mouth pursed the way his mother sipped. He wore jeans, a shirt with sleeves rolled to his elbows. His eyes could measure a length of a board, and his knees genuflect over flower beds and leafy gutters. They said lots of things about Jose, but almost nothing about his parents. His mother stitched at a machine all day, and his father, with a steady job at the telephone company, climbed splintered, sun-sucked poles, fixed wires, and looked around the city at tree level. "What do you see up there?" Jose once asked his father. "Work," he answered. "I see years of work, mio." Jose took this as truth, and though he did well in school, he felt destined to labor. His arms would pump and his legs would bend. His arms would carry a world of earth. He believed in hard work, believed that his strength was as ancient as rocks. Life is hard, his father repeated from the time Jose could first make out the meaning of those words, until he was stroking his fingers against the grains of his sandpaper beard. His mother was an example to Jose. She would raise her hands, showing her fingers pierced from the sewing machine. She bled on her machine, bled because there was money to make, a child to raise, and a roof to stay under. One day, when Jose returned home from junior high, his cousin Arnie was sitting on the lawn, sucking on a stalk of grass. Jose knew that grass didn't come from his lawn. His was cut and pampered and clean. "Jose!" Arnie shouted as he took off his earphones of his seedy Walkman. "Hi," Arnie said without much enthusiasm. He didn't like his cousin. He thought he was lazy and worse, spoiled by the trappings of being middle class. His parents had good jobs in offices and showered him with shoes, clothes, shoes, CDs, vacations, almost anything he wanted. Arnie's family had never climbed a telephone pole to size up the future. Arnie rose to his feet, and Jose saw that his cousin was wearing a new pair of high tops. He didn't say anything. "Got an idea," Arnie said cheerfully. "Something that'll make us money." Jose looked at his cousin. Not a muscle of curiosity twitched in his face. Still, Arnie explained that since he himself was so clever with words and his best cousin in the world was good at working with his hands, that maybe they might start a company. "What would you do?" Jose asked. "Me?" he said brightly. "Shoot, I'll round up all kinds of jobs for you. You won't have to do anything." He stopped and started again. "Except, do the work." Get out of here, Jose said. Don't be that way, Arnie begged. Let me tell you how it works. The boys went inside the house, and while Jose stripped off his school clothes and put on his jeans and a t-shirt, Arnie told him that they could be rich. You ever hear of this guy named Bart Bechtel? Arnie asked. Jose shook his head. Man, he started just like us, Arnie said. He started digging ditches and stuff. And next thing you knew, he was sitting by his own swimming pool. You want to sit by your own pool, don't you? Arnie smiled, waiting for Jose to speak up. Never heard of this guy, Bechtel, he said after he rolled on 2 huge socks worn at the heels. He opened up his chest of drawers and brought out a pack of Kleenex. Arnie looked at the Kleenex. How come you don't use your sleeve? Arnie joked. Jose thought for a moment and said, I'm not like you. He smiled at his retort. Listen, I'll find the work and then we can split it. 50-50. Jose knew that 50-50 was a bad deal. How about 60-40? Arnie suggested when he could see that Jose wasn't going for it. I know a lot of people from my dad's job. They're waiting for us. Jose sat on the edge of his bed and started to lace up his boots. He knew that there are agencies that would find you work. Agencies that took a portion of your pay. They're cheats, he thought. People who sit in air-conditioned offices while there's work. You really know a lot of people? Boatloads, said Arnie. Arnie said, my dad works with this millionaire, honest, who cooks a steak for his dog every day. He's a liar, Jose thought. No matter how he tried, he couldn't picture a dog grubbing on steak. The world was too poor for that kind of silliness. Listen, I'll go 80-20. Aw, man, Arnie whined. That ain't fair. Jose laughed. I mean, half the work is finding the jobs, Arnie explained, his palms up as he begged Jose to be reasonable. Jose knew this was true. He had to go door to door, and he disliked asking for work. But he assumed that it should automatically be his, since he was a good worker, honest, and always on time. Where'd you get this idea, anyhow? Jose asked. I got a business mind, Arnie said proudly. Just like that Bechtel guy, Jose retorted. That's right. Jose agreed to 70-30 split on the condition that Arnie had to help out. Arnie hollered, arguing that some people were meant to work and others come up with brilliant ideas. He was one of the latter. Still, he agreed after Jose said it was that or nothing. In the next 2 weeks, Arnie found an array of jobs. Jose peeled off shingles from a rickety garage roof, carried rocks down a path to where a pond would go, and spray-painted lawn furniture. And while Arnie accompanied him, most of the time he did nothing. He did help occasionally. He did shake the cans of spray paint and kick aside debris so that Jose didn't trip while they were going down the path carrying the rocks. He did stack the piles of shingles, but almost cried when a nail bit his thumb. But mostly he told Jose what he had missed or where the work could be improved. Jose was bothered because he and his work had never been criticized before. But soon Jose learned to ignore his cousin, ignore his comments about his spray painting, or about the way he lugged rocks, 2 in each arm. He didn't say anything either. When they got paid, Arnie rubbed his hands like a fly, muttering, "It's payday." Arnie found a job scrubbing a drained swimming pool. The 2 boys met early at Jose's house. Arnie brought his bike. Jose's own bike had a flat that grinned like a clown's face. "I'll pedal," when Arnie said that he didn't have much leg strength. With Arnie on the handlebars, Jose tore off, his pedaling so strong that tears of fear formed in Arnie's eyes. "Slow down!" Arnie cried. Jose ignored him, and within minutes they were riding the bike up a gravel driveway. Arnie hopped off at first chance. "You're scary," Arnie said, picking a gnat from his eye. Jose chuckled. When Arnie knocked on the door, an old man, still in pajamas, appeared in the window. He motioned for the boys to come around back. "Let me do the talking," Arnie suggested to his cousin. "He knows my dad real good. They're like this." Pressed his 2 fingers together. Jose didn't bother to say okay. He walked the bike into the backyard with which was lush with plants. Roses in their last bloom, geraniums, hydrangeas, pansies with their skirts of bright colors. Jose could make out a splash of a fountain. Then he heard the hysterical yapping of a poodle. From all his noise, a person might have thought that the dog was on fire. "Hi, Mr. Clemens," Arnie said, extending his hand. "I'm Arnie Sanchez. Nice to see you again." Jose had never seen a kid actually greet someone like this. Mr. Clemens said, hiking up his pajama bottoms. "I only wanted one kid to work." "Oh," Arnie stuttered. "Actually, my cousin Jose really does the work. I kind of, supervise." Mr. Clemens pinched his wrinkled nose. He seemed to not understand. He took out a pea-sized hearing aid, fiddled with its tiny dial, fitted it into his ear, which was surrounded by wiry gray hair. "I'm only paying for one boy," Mr. Clemens shouted. His poodle clicked and stood behind his legs as the dog bared its small teeth. "That's right," Arnie said, smiling a strained smile. "We know you're going to compensate only one of us." Clemens muttered under his breath and combed his hair with his fingers. He showed Jose the pool, which was shaped as round as an elephant. It was filthy with grime. Near the bottom, some grayish water shimmered, and leaves floated as limp as cornflakes. "It's got to be real clean, Miss Clemens, or it's not worth it." "Oh, Jose's a great worker," Arnie said. He patted his cousin's shoulders and said that he could lift a mule. Mr. Clemens sized up Jose and squeezed his shoulders too. "How do I know you anyhow?" Mr. Clemens asked Arnie, who was aiming a smile at the poodle. "You know my dad," Arnie answered, raising his smile to the old man. "He works at Interstate Insurance. You and he had some business deals." Mr. Clemens thought for a moment, a hand on his mouth, head shaken. He could have been thinking about the meaning of life. His face was so dark. "Mexican fella?" he inquired. "That's him," Arnie said happily. Felt like hitting his cousin for his cheerful attitude. Instead, he walked over, picked up the white plastic bottle of bleach. Next to it were a wire brush, a pumice stone, and some rags. He sat down the bottle and, like a surgeon, put on a pair of rubber gloves. "You know what you're doing, boy?" Mr. Clemens asked. Jose nodded as he walked into the pool. If it had been filled with water, his chest would have been wet. The new hairs on his chest would have been floating like legs of jellyfish. "Oh yeah," Arnie chimed, speaking of his cousin. "Jose was born to work." Jose would have drowned his cousin if there had been more water. Instead, he poured a bleach solution into a rag and swirled it over an area. He took a wire brush and scrubbed. The black algae came up like a foamy monster. "We're a team," Arnie said to Mr. Clemens. Arnie descended into the pool and took the bleach bottle from Jose. He held it for Jose and smiled at Mr. Clemens, who, hands on his hips, watched for a while, the poodle at his side. He cupped his ears as if to pick up the sounds of Jose's scrubbing. "Nice day, huh?" Arnie sang. What?" Mr. Clemens said. "Nice day," he repeated, this time louder. "So which ear can't you hear in?" Grinning, Arnie wriggled his ear to make sure Mr. Clemens knew what he was asking. Mr. Clemens ignored Arnie. He watched Jose, whose arms worked back and forth like he was sawing logs. "We're not only a team," Arnie shouted, "but we're also cousins." Shook his head at Arnie. When he left the poodle leading the way, Arnie immediately climbed out of the pool and sat on the edge, legs dangling. "It's going to be blazing," Arnie complained. He shaded his eyes with his hand and looked east, where the sun was rising over a sycamore, its leaves hanging like bats. Jose scrubbed. He worked the wire brush over the black and green stains. The grime dripped like tears. He finished a large area. He hopped out of the pool and returned hauling a garden hose with an attached nozzle. He gave the cleaned area a blast. When the spray got too close, his cousin screamed. got up and, searching for something to do, picked a lakwit from a tree. A lakwit is a small yellowish fruit that is juicy and tart. It grows in bunches. "What's your favorite fruit?" Arnie asked. Jose ignored him. Arnie stuffed a bunch of lakwits into his mouth, then cursed himself for splattering juice on his new high tops. He returned to the pool, his cheeks fat with seeds, and once again sat on the edge. He started to tell Jose how he had first learned to swim. "We're on vacation at Mazatlan. You been there, ain't you?" Jose shook his head, dabbed the bleach solution onto the sides of the pool with a rag, and scrubbed a new area. "Anyhow, my dad was on the beach and saw this drowned dead guy. And right there, my dad got scared and realized I couldn't swim." Arnie rattled on about his father had taught him in a hotel pool and later shown him where the drowned man's body had been. "Be quiet," Jose said. "What?" "I can't concentrate," Jose said, stepping back to look at the clean pool. Arnie shut his mouth but opened it to lick lakwit juice from his fingers. He kicked his legs against the swimming pool board. He looked around the backyard and spotted a lounge chair. He got up, dusting off the back of his pants, and threw himself into the cushions. He raised and lowered the back of the lounge. Sighing, he snuggled in. He stayed quiet for 3 minutes during the time Jose scrubbed. His arms hurt, but he kept working with long strokes. Jose knew that in an hour the sun would drench the pool with light. He hurried to get the job done. Arnie then asked, "Have you ever peeled before?" Jose looked at his cousin, his nose burned from bleach. He scrunched up his face. "You know, like when you get sunburned?" "I'm too dark to peel," Jose said, his words echoing because he had advanced to the deep end. "Why don't you be quiet and let me work?" Arnie babbled on how he had peeled when on vacation in Hawaii. He explained that he was really more French than Mexican. That's why his skin was sensitive. He said that when he lived in France, people thought he could be Portuguese or maybe Armenian, never Mexican. Jose felt like soaking his rag with bleach and pressing it to Arnie's mouth to make him quiet. Then Mr. Clemens appeared. He was dressed in white pants and a flowery shirt. His thin hair was combed so that his scalp, as pink as a crab, showed. "I'm just taking a little rest," Arnie said. Arnie leapt back into the pool. He took the bleach bottle and held it. He smiled at Mr. Clemens, who came to inspect the job. "Jose's doing a good job," Arnie said, then whistled a song. Mr. Clemens peered into the pool, hands on his knees, admiring the progress. "Pretty good, huh?" Mr. Clemens nodded, and hearing aid fell out, and Jose turned in time to see it roll like a bottle cap towards the bottom of the pool. It leapt into the stagnant water with a plop. A single bubble went up, and it was gone. "Dang," Mr. Clemens swore. He took his shuffling steps towards the deep end. He steadied his gaze out on where the hearing aid had sunk. He leaned over, and suddenly, arms waving and one leg kicking out, he tumbled into the pool. He landed standing up. Then his legs buckled, and he crumpled, his head striking the bottom. He rolled once, and half his body settled in the water. "You see that?" Arnie shouted, big-eyed. Jose had already dropped his brushes on the side of the pool, and he hurried to the old man who moaned, eyes closed, his false teeth jutting from his mouth. A ribbon of blood immediately began to flow from his scalp. "We better get us out of here. They're going to blame us." Jose knelt on both knees at the man's side. He took the man's teeth from his mouth and placed them in his shirt pocket. The old man groaned and opened his eyes. They were shiny wet. He appeared startled, like a newborn. "Sir, you'll be all right," Jose cooed, then snapped at his cousin. "Arnie, get over here and help me. I'm going home." Arnie whined. "You punk, go inside and call 911. Arnie said that they should leave him there. "Why should we get involved?" he cried as he started for his bike. "It's his own fault." Jose laid the man's head down, and with giant steps, he leapt out of the pool, shoving his cousin as he passed. He went into the kitchen and punched 911 on the telephone. He explained to the operator what had happened, and when asked for the address, he dropped the phone and went to the front porch to look for it. It's 9:40 East Brown, Jose breathed. He hung up and looked wildly about the kitchen. He opened up the refrigerator and brought a plastic tray of ice, which he twisted so a few cubes popped out and slid across the floor. He wrapped some of the cubes in a dish towel. When he raced outside, Arnie was gone, and the yapping poodle was doing laps around the edge of the pool. And Mr. Clemens was trying to stand up. "No, sir." Jose jumped into the pool, his own knees almost plugging. "Please sit down." Mr. Clemens staggered. Jose caught him before his head. He hit his head again. The towel of ice cubes dropped from his hands. With his legs spread to absorb the weight, Jose raised the man up in his arms, this fragile man. He picked him up and carefully stepped towards the shallow end, one slow elephant step at a time. "You'll be all right," Jose said, more to himself than to Mr. Clemens, who moaned and struggled to be let free. The sirens wailed in the distance, and the poodle yapped, which started a dog barking in the neighbor's yard. "You'll be okay," repeated, and in the shallow end of the pool, he edged up the steps. He laid the old man in a lounge chair and raced inside for more ice and another towel. He returned outside and placed a bundle of cubes on the man's head where the blood flowed. Mr. Clemens was awake, looking about. Then the old man felt his mouth, reached into his shirt pocket, and pulled out his false teeth. He fit the teeth into Mr. Clemens' mouth and smiled, and a smile appeared, something bright at a difficult time. "I hit my head," Mr. Clemens said after smacking his teeth so that the fit was right. Jose looked up, and his gaze floated to a telephone pole, one his father might have climbed. If he had been there, his father would have seen that Jose was more than just a good worker. He would have seen a good man. He held the towel to the old man's head. The poodle, now quiet, joined them on the lounge chair. The fire truck pulled into the driveway, and soon they were surrounded by firemen, one of whom brought out a first aid kit. A fireman led Jose away and asked what had happened. He started to explain when his cousin reappeared, yapping like a poodle. "I was scrubbing the pool, and I said, Mr. Clems, you shouldn't stand so close to the edge. Did he listen? No. He leaned over, and, well, you can't just imagine." Walked away from Arnie's jabbering. He walked away and realized that there were people like his cousin, the liar, and people like himself, someone he was getting to know. He walked away and in mid-morning heat boosted himself up a telephone pole. He climbed up and saw for himself what his father saw, miles and miles of trees and houses, and a future lost in the layers of yellowish haze. So guys, that's the story there. I think it's kind of a cool story just of hard work and diligence and being a hard worker and being there for people and I think it's quite an important story. We really have this contrast between Arnie and Jose, and obviously Arnie's likes to take credit for other people's work, and Jose's a diligent worker, and so there's many great things in work, and you'll also encounter I'll get to this in a moment, but you'll also encounter people who don't want to work as much, and people who aren't hard workers, and this can sometimes be quite frustrating. You can see Jose getting kind of frustrated during the story, and I know is like from my time landscaping and doing hard work, there's always a lot of people who like to watch rather than do, and so that's frustrating. But the thing is, you gotta remember that we're like that sin is in the world, and that we often can see that in other people. I think part of where the story might get it wrong is, breaking it up into two different types of people. And in reality, I guess you could say that there's two different kinds of people, but there'd be more, people who are saved and people who aren't. But really, the whole heap of humanity is quite sinful, and we can often see the sin in others easier than the sin in ourselves. And so, sloth or laziness is sinful, and we should try and work hard. And there's always an excuse why you can't work. You can counter all kinds of. So I've been a crew leader in a lot of company time and work, and I've had lots of people work under me, and in that sense. And there's always some excuse why someone can't work and why this can't happen. Some are valid, but a lot of them are just excuses that people put up. And but the thing is, whenever you are on a work site or working hard, the most important thing is that you work hard and you do the hard work. It's not you don't have to necessarily worry about what other people are doing unless they're being unsafe. And obviously, if you're in a crew leader position of some sort, you want to try and motivate them to work as well. But at the end, it's most important that you're showing people by example that what working hard is, and also it's not necessarily be in it for the big bucks, right? Like that working in itself is a pleasant thing, and that we're designed and created to work and to tend to the earth, and working is amazing and can be full of joy, and we don't need to be grumblers as we work. Working can be a good thing, and I think we're all born to be workers, whether we're guys or girls. We'll have jobs to do and tasks to complete, and they can be hard and they can be tough, and you can even have, as you saw in the little video at the beginning of this, the wrong tools for the job. So you get somewhere and you got to do a job, and you might not have the right tool, and you just you can either decide to give up and not do it, or you could try your best. And so that tree, even though we lost the saw broke, we actually did get it down. We found a little hatchet and we took it down. So you can always find a way. You can persevere and work on through. So there'll be some questions about the story. I think the main things to note is how we see sin in this. We see the laziness of Arnie there, and we also see his kind of his lying, right? His lying. Like, there was no reason for him to lie, right? That's the most interesting thing about sin, right? He could have. There was nothing to. There's absolutely no reason to lie, but people, me included, and everyone, we're inclined towards sin. And as you grow up, you'll see this more and more. And so that's why we have to every day, right, pray to the Lord for His Spirit and His strength, and His grace, because without that, I'm just as inclined to be sinful too. It's not in me that there is any strength to work hard or to love my neighbor and to love someone else. It's all in the Lord that gives us strength. And so every day is a struggle. Every day's got its new pains and issues, and we can either we can have two things. We can either grumble about them, or we can look at all those issues as a way to rely more and more on the Lord, and the Lord will strengthen us and help us, and whatever the outcome, the Lord is working in our hearts, right? So that's the most important thing to remember every day, whether you're frustrated or what's going on. The Lord is working in you. When you have faith in the Lord, and when the Spirit of the Lord's in you, the Lord will be working in you. Whether you have good things, blessings upon you, a blessing will make you trust in the Lord more and recognize the Lord and praise the Lord. And a trial will bring you to your knees. And even when you're low on strength and you're weak and tired, you'll still be able to look to the Lord and cling to Him. So guys, I just hope you enjoyed the story. I thought it was kind of a fun story, and anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed. Bye for now.
That kid looks like a defeated enemy, vanquished with an axe. Look at this axe. We used that axe, and wherever the saw went, the broken saw, and we got this down. Whew. Good job.